World War One is such an expansive topic. How did you decide, to focus on Passchendaele, and then there was Verdun, the gas masks? Like, it's such a big thing to try and put together in one album.
Sometimes it's the music who decides, actually. In many cases when we do albums, our pet projects or pet topics we really wanted to do doesn't go on an album because the music wasn't speaking the same language.
Right. Okay.
It's not as easy as, you could say happy story, happy song, of course, but emotionally, what we felt when we wrote the music, it has to be that emotion in that story.
It's always a puzzle. We start with a concept, maybe a few loose musical ideas, and then a few loose topics. And we can't do it in a specific order because one thing might affect another. So it's all a big puzzle how to get it through together.
So obviously, history's always been a very strong point of Sabaton. But do you feel that the band is starting to kind of transcend just singing about history? And you've launched the Sabaton History channel. And do you feel that fans are really starting to learn about history with the band?
I hope so. Our purpose is not to spread, the gospel of military history at all. Not in any way, but it's like, I think there's a whole bunch of people who listen to Sabaton and enjoy the music and don't care about the historical part. They want to drink beer and sing along. It's totally fine. I'm really cool with it. But I'm suspecting a good 30 to 50% are missing on an extra dimension to our music and our storytelling that we put a lot of effort in. And maybe, this historical edition that we got, with a bit of introduction to every song, Sabaton History channel, might be a way for those people to kind of experience the joy we get in the discovery phase. Because for us, one of the biggest joys is discovering these stories. Maybe the Red Baron was an obvious choice,
but there are still a lot of things inside that story.
Yeah.
Which we discover as well when we are doing it. We know the name, we know the top of it, but we didn't know the full story.
I also wanted to touch on the fact that you released the song Bismarck. And why do you think that was the most requested song by fans ever?
There are a lot of things concerning this. Why it was exactly that one, that's a little bit difficult to dig in and to analyze why this story touches so many people. But it is an interesting one, and for sure, and one we have been reading about it for so many years. For sure, we were like, this is something we have to touch one day. We have to do it one day. For reasons we couldn't do it for Carolus Rex album, and wouldn't really fit onto that album. And the Heroes album, not really also, but for Last Stand we could have done it. It would have sort of fitted, but it wasn't the
squeeze,
Yeah.
It wasn't the obvious. And then when we're coming up to 20 years anniversary of Sabaton, and we're like, okay, so a lot of people are asking us, like, what are you doing for that? Are you doing re-releases of your previous albums, like boxed set, or re-recordings of old stuff? No, we've recorded something new for the future instead of looking backwards. And what do we record? We're already working on idea for an album. Let's make something that is outside of it. And what should we do? We should do the most wanted song of Sabaton. That's what we should do. And there you go. And
it's like a thank you to the fans, I guess, for 20 years of service in many cases.
Well, it's interesting, that you mentioned the 20 years. What would you say is your personal biggest achievement throughout your 20 years in Sabaton?
We set out on a mission to play heavy metal, and we are still doing it. And it is tough to maintain that. And the competition to survive as a band is very difficult. And so I think the achievement of surviving here while doing what we set out to do is one of the biggest achievements for sure.
And we're not only talking about us two sitting here.
No.
People in the organization, people who were a part of the band in the past and also now in the present,
And so the people who work like that, but we didn't take in foreign advisors and these kind of things like traditional management or these kind of things. We have been inventing a lot of solutions.
Going quickly back to this incredible artwork that you guys have got, were you inspired by the likes of Iron Maiden and things like that? Because there seems to be a lot of little Easter eggs that represent.
Of course, that is always a great idea, because we wanted it to have so many details that you can look at it for a long time and rediscover new stuff and think about it. Iron Maiden was very good at doing this. And it's one of the reasons also I think that a lot of fans appreciate it so much, because we took a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
We spent a lot of time working on the artwork.
Finally, what would you say, the Great War represents to either the two of you together or individually?
Hell and misery.
That's a
good
way to say it.
If we're talking about the conflict, yes. If we're talking about the album, it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But I mean, that album is a reflection of that hell and misery. And it's a dark place to be to do the research. I mean, doing Heroes, doing the research for Last Stand, there's a lot of sad stories in there, of course, but a hero, in a sense, you're going for heroic stories. There will be something uplifting in there.
Yeah.
Same with the Last Stand. Only the choice to make a last stand is a heroic act in itself, in a way. Mm-hmm. And this is much darker.
Yeah. Trying to picture a couple of things. First of all, the brutal, close at hand fighting that pretty much ended after this, because weapons become more sophisticated after this time and less hand-to-hand fighting. So I think this was, at least in Europe, this was one of the last battles where people would have so close fightings.
You can see the end and the death of the old school way of waging war, and you can see the introduction of new technologies as the tank, gas, and everything like that. So in a sense, from this conflict we have the aftermath, I guess, of this conflict. We have the European map we know today.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having a chat. Really appreciate it, man.
No, thank you.
Thank you.